All right, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. I'm your host, Rich Prado, owner of Play in School. Today, we're going back to the well one more time. Andy Burress, owner, founder of 5 Star, is going to join us. I want to direct everybody before we start. Go get to know Andy on our conversation from March 2nd, 2020. Was you can find it at playinschool.com/Burress. That's 2 R's, 2 S's. playinschool.com/Burress. Get to know him there, kind of get his background, the whole deal, his whole story. We talked about it. I actually was just listening to it. And if you listen to it in 2x speed, you won't be disappointed. So go for it. Go listen there. Andy, welcome back for round 2.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate you having me back on.
You got it, man. We've had a bunch of friends of yours on here. Most recently, we had one of your new, I guess you call them. I don't know if you call them partners or franchises or what you. Chris Chavis was on, not terribly long ago. A couple months back. If anybody wants to know what we kind of got his perspective of sort of the process of, how a guy in his shoes makes a decision instead of throwing up his own logo, the walking through how he came to be partnered up with you, with a big logo, with a big brand, with a national footprint. That was an interesting conversation. If anybody's just kind of tuning in, if they're new to the show, maybe they're an Andy Burress fan and they this is the first time listening to Travel Ball Talk, go check that out. playinschool.com/Chavis, and you'll kind of hear it from the other direction. Maybe we're going to get a little bit of insight onto some of your growth, but I promised Andy that I was going to try and stick to as much as possible some of these standard questions, just in respect for your time. So let's just start right there at the top, and then we're kind of weave in and out with some inspired questions based on your responses. But is there a book, a movie, a website that you're recommending to your friends, your buddies that are coaching, things that you think are going to sort of help them as a coach or a person?
It's funny. When I first originally read this question, I go, I start thinking. I said, surely there's something I can come up with. What's something, and for people, that know me or know baseball, I always tell people, I'm very gray. So, I never make plans. It's always what comes at me is I have to fix. And so, I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't have time. I don't have the patience, I guess. People laugh and they send me these long emails and long texts and they send me a text. I said, I know you didn't read that. It's such a fast pace that I live at, I guess you'd say. I don't really have a book or a movie. Like I said, when I come home in the afternoons, I go out, and I think you and I talked about this before. I go out, I have a little outdoor kitchen that I sit at and with my computer and, send emails or, and I turn on a baseball game. And that's really, I get tired. So you don't get tired of baseball? I'm like,
yeah.
How could I get tired of baseball? It's like, and so to answer your question, I'm long and hard about it. I don't even know of a book that I've read.
Well, I think I'm going to pause you there. I think you gave a great piece of advice without even realizing. I think we've hit sort of a generation where some kids and some coaches really don't study the game, and so without putting words in your mouth, what you're saying is watch some baseball. Because there is a ton of value to be gained from that. Speaking of watching baseball, were you tuned in yesterday? The Dodgers game with Kershaw going for a perfect game and was pulled. What you got on there? What's your hot take?
And I always people from the outside in, it's easy for us to sit and assume things and who knows? I mean, Kershaw, obviously he's he's had some innings on him. Maybe one situations where Kershaw's like, hey, I've got one. I mean, I'm not risking the rest of the year for this one.
Yep.
I mean, you just never know.
Yep.
You never know what that conversation was, and so obviously you want to scream at the TV and go, "What are you doing?" But for guys that understand that these things are thought through, and ultimately the player, and especially in Kershaw's situation, gets to make that decision, and so it's probably more his decision than it was anybody's. I mean, I guess it is easy for us to oh man, you can't do that. But like I said, I guarantee it was probably
this was
80%.
Predetermined.
Sure.
Predetermined. I'm sort of the same opinion. I think this is a conversation that was had, the day before the game. This is the plan going into the game. This is the number of pitches we're going, and that's that. And you got to have, at some point you got to have some conviction, and be able to trust the plan. And is it different several months from now? Yeah, maybe, probably. Can you throw the plan away? Can you change your plan? Yeah, but man, that's kind of hard on the second week of April. By the way, short spring training. So he's really still just ramping up.
Right.
So.
And those guys, I mean, they know their body better than anybody. I mean, they've done it. They've, as a young player, obviously you don't realize some of these things that go on. I mean, and as you get, these guys get older and they realize, where they at and with their body, and they just, it's one of the things they just go, hey, I've got one, and I'm not risking the season for another.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question about watching baseball. So we might have hopefully a bunch of coaches listening. Hopefully have a bunch of players listening. How do you recommend to a player? And then a second question. You can go in either order. How do you recommend a coach? Like what should they be looking for? What should they be locking in on as a player or a coach as they watch a big league game, or maybe even a college game? There's so many college games being on TV these days, anyway.
My biggest thing is it's not it's the little things that you watch. Hey, where's the second baseman taking ground balls from? In between innings. And a lot of times you'll get to see that, but a lot of times they'll flip over, and that's one thing about anyone watching games is that sometimes you don't see those little things that happen. The preparation before the performance.
Mm-hmm.
If you see middle infielders, they go over and take ground balls in between innings, and they take 6 steps and make kind of a lazy throw, and all of a sudden the ball's hit, and they've got to get rid of it, and they haven't done that. They just took 6 steps. And so those are the little things. And again, I just enjoyed the game in itself. Just the game inside the game, the mental aspect of it. Guys, now, obviously there's not used to. There used to be guys that steal bases and trying to do. It's just those the thought processes of the game of baseball. I mean, obviously, guy leaves one down the middle and hits home run. I mean, that's what you were supposed to do, and the pitcher would have said the same. But there's also those times that pitcher throws that ball right down the middle, and for whatever reason, and it's just, and again, going back just the way the game of baseball is played, they don't even, hitters don't even swing because they were locked in on something. So this is, that to me is just the enjoyment of of watching that game and seeing those guys, seeing those guys perform at the highest level.
I saw a play the other day. It made its way around the internet pretty good. I believe it was Kiki Hernandez. He was mic'd up during the game. That's a kind of a totally different conversation, whether you're for or against being, players talking with the booth during the games. It's kind of weird, but they caught a really kind of interesting moment because he basically they're asking him, "Hey man, what are you thinking here?" And he goes, what do you say? He goes, fast guy on third, slow guy on second. I got a chance to throw him out if it comes to me.
Right.
And before he could get the words out of his mouth, there's a laser hit right at him. And so we got to see a big leaguer pre-planning, thinking about the play before it happens, which is what we're trying to, we're trying to coach these kids on how to do that, right? You're supposed to think through, okay, if the ball's hit to me, what am I going to do? If the ball's hit to my left, what am I going to do? If the ball's hit to my right, what am I going to do? So that was a really awesome moment. And if there's ever an argument to do the mic'd up players, I think that won me over. But that I'm just thinking for a kid at home, you're watching that, even if you don't get to hear sort of what's going through his head before the moment, you can see it happening. And the other part was he already knew because he knows the players on the other team. He goes, that's the fast guy, that's the slow guy. I'm thinking, so if that was a one hopper to him, if it had been a fly ball, and he knows the fast guy's on third, his throw's probably going to go to third base, depending on where the ball is, depending on how deep he is. He's probably going to give up that run on a and try and keep the slow runner at second base. Really kind of neat, kind of behind the scenes, little inside baseball there. So man, to go back, you're like, oh, I don't have anything to recommend. All I do is watch baseball. Good answer. Yeah.
It's just to me, I mean, and I'm a big believer. Now there's so much training that goes on, and I believe in that. I mean, again, all our places that we have facilities that where guys can go train, but playing the game of baseball and playing different positions. I mean, that to me is the game of the only way you can learn the game of baseball. I mean, BP's great, ground balls are great, but you got to go be in that situation, and you got to fail in that situation so that if it stings a little bit, you remember.
Yeah, it makes an imprint. It makes an imprint. The next time that thing happens, well, you've already thought this through, and you should be ready to go.
Exactly.
Well, hey, I think let's give you a chance to talk. You did sort of just mention how you've got all of the different partners that you have across the country have facilities where their guys can go play. Why don't you talk about from a high level what the process is like? How because you have had growth in the last 2 years since I spoke to you last. How are you either outbound looking for guys or inbound guys are coming to you, and sort of like the criteria of what makes a good 5-star partner?
Well, I tell you, and it's a great thing. Kind of to bring you back from the beginning, I started in the indoor facility, and so I understand the struggles of by yourself. Losing kids to bigger organizations. And again, listen, I don't, I had a kid come to me and goes, he was one of my better players, went to Ole Miss and ended up being getting drafted. I don't know if he set the home run record at Ole Miss, but I know he was a guy named Matt Smith. I mean, he came to me at 16 years old. He said, and he'd played with me and he'd worked with me, and he goes, hey, man, I got a better opportunity. This, and I, personally, I wanted to say, man, I can't believe you're even asking me this, but I knew from his perspective and from his standpoint and from what was best for him that they were going to give him more options than I could.
Yeah, yeah.
And so for me, that always stuck with me. This was in 03, 04. That always stuck with me. And I said, the only thing that I ever wanted to do was the growth that we've had was obviously, I mean, nobody can plan for that. I mean, nobody can, obviously we all want to see growth, but I mean, we're larger now than the second and the third below us put together. As far as perfect game goes, and so this has happened over in the last 2 years. So this was never something that I planned to do. I enjoy hunting and fishing, and just wanted to help South Georgia kids and kids that maybe, but we had a formula that worked, and when we put it in place and they told other people about it, it just continued to grow. And it was all because I knew what it was like to have a small facility, being there just busting your butt, and kind of getting to a spot where you felt like you were doing some good things, and then your guys leave to go play. They could do more for them, and there's USA Baseball, the UBC. There's a lot of things out there now that's been created. I mean, even PG's doing some things, PBR's doing some things that they're only inviting 16 teams to, and if you want to be, you got to be on one of those 16 teams or one of those 10 teams or 12 teams, whatever it is that those guys are invited. So, if you're on the outside looking in, you're going to lose that guy. I mean, it's just because, and it's not because that kid's not loyal. It's not because, but that's what's best for that kid. And so, because he can go out and be seen by 40 guys instead of 4,
right?
So the college coaches, they know the same thing. They know that we put a kid on one of our national teams or one of our teams that go to one of these big events. We think they can play. We've done our homework. We know the kid. We know that kid's going to be able to perform at that level and perform at the next level. And so, going back to, our model has been real simple, that, all the problems that I had when I was when I was 27 years old, was, losing guys to bigger programs or, I know what they are. And so, when I sit down with a guy that, my favorite saying is, the guy on the top of the mountain didn't fall there. I know what the guy at the bottom of the mountain, the middle of the mountain, almost at the top, I know what they all feel like because I've been there, and so for me, being able to go in and do, obviously, with what we're doing as far as volume, I mean, this is just, this is not anything to do with baseball. This is just business, but, with the volume that we have, we get better price than anybody, so this guy can immediately jump on, save money, keep his kids, keep his players in the program, and so that was just for me. That happened to me years ago. And like you said, hey, if it don't hurt, you don't remember it. And it hurt, and so I remembered it. And I was like, I don't want to do this again, and, I never, like I said, the growth was something that nobody could predict or, expect or, plan for, so that's, in a nutshell, that's kind of been, what we've been able to do and just really, because I had started a facility. I've been inside of those cages. I've grinded out lessons. I had teams. There's so many facets of it. I've sat there and waited and hoped that I would get into this event. And you got 3 or 4 good players, and they're looking at you going, "Hey, are we going to get in this event?" And, because they, and PG and these guys have done a good job of being able to promote their events, and there's certain events that everybody needs to go to. I mean, that's just, and it's not, it's not my thing. It's what has been created, and so for your mom and a kid, they keep looking at you like, hey, it's April 14th. I won't see our name on the list. So to be able to take those guys and give them a definite answer of, hey, you're just not going to be able to go, or your guy can go, but he's going to have to go with one of these groups, or your team can go. Is again, is comfort for those guys, because I've been there, and I know the stress, and I know the anxiety of sitting, and waiting, and so to me that's one of the things that, again, because it was struggles that I had coming up, I wanted to solve those problems for guys. And we get emails. I get freaking 5 emails a day. And I always say people want to. There's a lot of programs out there that I always say that they want us to throw them a life raft. Well, that ain't the program.
Yeah.
Far as a lot of like I said, a lot of the guys, it's either guys I played with coming up, or guys I knew coming up, or friends of guys that I knew who I've got great relationships with. And it's, I think we talked about earlier. It's just, it's about relationships.
So it doesn't feel like there's just like a hey, apply here and turn your local club into a 5-star club. That's not the
right.
process.
Right. That's exactly right. We because we actually created on our website, and we actually went and, I mean, again, this was all, with growth, you have growing pains. And this was one of the things, is we had so many people coming to us, we had to create a whole nother, branch, I guess you'd say, or hire other people just to handle, these emails and these, it's
a good problem to have.
It is. And I, like I said, I'm very proud of it, but it's also, you got to have the right people, and no matter what you do, if you've got the right people around you, it makes things, easier, and then, and again, most of our guys that we take at this point are guys that, and what I'll be honest with you, what we've started to do now is create new brands, because it's tough to have, PG can't let 5-star have 10 teams in the World Series,
Right.
So how do you correct that? Well, you have to start you have to be a new brand. You have to, put guys under a new brand and allow them to come up under it.
This is breaking news to me. I'm very curious.
Yeah.
Are there brands out there that I would recognize that you're actually the top dog of, and I was unaware of?
Well, and I'll just, Nick James, who had Cannon's baseball, he and I have been good friends, and he made a good point. He had a really good 22 team, and he's like, Andy, we can't put all these guys on one group. We can't put all these guys on one team. He goes, he says, he partnered with Addison, the guy that had played with the Yankees, and a guy over in Tampa, and this is one that's known. Like, I don't. Some of them are not known just for obvious reasons, but the CBU, which had a Jupiter bid this year, obviously it makes makes it nice for them, and they deserved it. I mean, they had a team that's a 22 team, though, so it had probably 2 first-rounders on there, but so they deserve to go. But on their own, I mean, they may or may not have got to go. So the CBU branch, which is is in Fort Lauderdale and Tampa, is they actually wear the F on their obviously the jersey says CBU, but in a significant meeting, two sides. We go back to the chain baseball, CBU. And this.
For those of you who aren't in the loop on the chain baseball, go back to the original podcast that I pointed you to at the beginning of the show. Go find that episode, playingschool.com/Burress, and you'll get the entire history of chain baseball.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting. I've pulled their website up, and I see Nick James, I see Addison here, and so there's a relationship here. This is sort of, I don't want to call it a kind of a sister organization, if you will. I don't know if that's the right phrase.
Sure. And they have had tremendous growth. I don't know. You go back and man, they just really get after it, and it's kind of a. I mean, there's some others that flew up under our umbrella that
right. I have a feeling we're going to talk about that a little bit off air. I'm going to bail you out here and say, all right, let's because I do want to be a little more respectful of your time today than I was last time. All right, so this is right in line here, and really thinking about my conversation with Chavis a couple months back, and obviously all of your experience spinning up new businesses, whether they're baseball or not, and non-baseball. A lot of people don't know you've had some pretty good success in some non-baseball things in your past. So what's one piece of advice you'd give someone who's just starting a team or organization, or maybe they're trying to open up a facility? Like, you got guys all the time who are in these positions. What are the conversations you're having with those guys?
Well, the biggest thing is and listen, this is stuff. I always say the guys that I mean, even if don't play with me or don't come on with us. I mean, I feel like, especially guys that I like or got a relationship with, that hey, listen, here's the lessons I've already paid for. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's not you pay for them again. Okay, I've already paid for them. I know they don't work. I know. And the biggest thing is, especially for facility wise, is and it's people. We talk about if you get into obviously we talk about on some Dairy Queens and different things, but if you talk about certain businesses, they need location. Mm-hmm. They need a good location. They need to be in a really good location on a corner. If you go in some of these franchise things, they will not let you put a Chick-fil-A in a bad spot. Mm-hmm. They just do it. Well, because you get so much drive-by business. Well, indoor facilities, guys are coming there. It's a destination. It's not. They're just not getting off the interstate because they got to take a leak.
Right.
They're coming to your spot.
Yeah, it's not random.
Right, it's not random. They know you. It was an interesting story. I was talking with the guy that was kind of started about the same time in the banking industry, and he's done really well. And he and I were talking. He goes, the first time I had a hard time finding you. And so you don't have to be on the corner
mm-hmm.
across Walgreens or Chick-fil-A. And so because that real estate is too high.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a good buddy who's a really sharp guy, and he's down in Dave's Ted Rose. He has a facility down in Sarasota, and he figured out. He said that out of a 7-day week, 24-hour day, 7-day week, that facility is used about 25% of the time. Well, that's the only business in the world.
That's pitiful, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, So anyway, and I say all this is that go just your rent is going to be the biggest thing that you can.
Yeah.
Your biggest factor that you can control.
It's not, and this is a really good lesson. It's not always about what you bring in; it's about what you spend. And there's people in, you got to think how many facilities are either too big or underutilized, like your buddy was just talking about. I swear, man, I think this is a facility is one of these places where bigger is not always better. In fact, most of the time it's not. You got to be really managing your overhead, and exactly. Like you said, so what's the strategies? Get off the beaten path a little bit. Find a deal so that your monthly nut is not too big. You're going to have to cover this thing every month, man. And when it sits vacant 75% of the week, that's not a good recipe.
No, it's, and baseball guys, and listen, I was a baseball guy early. Had no business sense, and I was thrown into I threw myself into the business world because of the success of the baseball. Well, when 09 hit, I failed too, and I learned a lot of lessons, that nobody ever taught me, and so, when baseball guys are in general are not business guys, it's business school. They've always, had plenty of talent. They've always, been able to do anything they want to do because of their talent. And then, because, again, let's just be honest. I mean, the arrogance of a, and you have to be. It's not a bad.
Sure. There's a swagger that comes with a good ball player, obviously, always.
Right. So he goes in and, I can do this, and obviously, and again, that's why a lot of they get started and they go, and I always say you can stay at home and break even. Okay, don't go spend so much money that you go have to work to break even. And so, and that's one of my biggest things is, my good friend Josh Baker, who was a partner of mine in a lot of things, and he owns Burbank Netting Company, and so we can
I thought I recognized that name out of Fernandina Beach.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
So he and I partner together on a lot of things, and in business together on a lot of things, but he so what again, it goes back to not only can we make sure those guys are getting, that come in the program, we can make sure the guys are getting the best value for their dollar. I mean, listen, I don't knock anybody coming in to a young guy and going, hey man, this is going to cost you $50,000. Well, if you're under our umbrella, there's a lot of ties back to things that we can generate income from, and help you. And so if you need nets, or if you need turf, or you're going to get a price that nobody else can get.
You're getting volume discounts that the big boys are getting, even though you're not a big boy technically.
Exactly.
You're affiliated with a big boy.
Right. And so for me, that's my greatest thing, is it because I did this. I struggled, early on and tried to figure, how do you, and I don't want to get lessons on the rest of my freaking life. I was doing, but at some point in time, and I love doing lessons, but the only way that you can only charge so much for a lesson, you can only charge so much for a kid to play for you. You can only charge so much. So how do you make more? Well, you got to be able to cut cost.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. You mentioned 2008, 2009. I tweeted last week or the beginning of this week, sort of a little bit of a warning to the baseball community. And I didn't go back to 08, 09. I went back to 2020. I said, listen, this COVID thing caught us all off guard. Cool. I hope we learned some lessons Not to go down too far, a business rabbit hole here, but we've already seen the first major bank that is predicting recession. A recession, not just a downturn in the economy, but an actual recession. And if you run a facility, you need to be what's the saying? Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. You need to be preparing today, right? Yep. You need to those squirrels don't wait until it's cold to get to round up those nuts, right?
Exactly.
And part of this is like putting a plan together. And if you have a great plan, hopefully it's going to work in good times and in bad times. And the other thing I sort of like referenced in that sort of tweet thread was that, think back to 2 years ago when you heard we're 1 week into lockdowns and the restaurant goes out of business down the street. That COVID and lockdowns didn't put that business was already out of business.
It's just a matter of time.
They were already hand to mouth, and so you gotta if you're hand to mouth today in April 2022, and there is potential for tough times ahead, stormy seas coming. You better prep and figure out where you're cutting costs. Figure out different revenue streams. Figure out we use the facility 25% of the week. Can we bump that up to maybe 40% of the week? 50% of the week? Be creative. I know a guy. I won't. I've shouted him out a bunch of times. This guy runs a facility out of West Texas. Man, if they don't have 25 different revenue streams in that facility, they don't have any. It's awesome. And one thing I'll tell, our world really gets tunnel vision on baseball, right? This is a baseball facility. We're going to give baseball lessons. Well, is it? I mean, if some yoga instructor wants to come in and give yoga, and they're going to pay you rent, I mean, what's it matter to you? You're not using the space anyway.
Exactly. There's your 15% right there to get you to 40.
Bingo. I'm just saying, and there's a million different ideas like that, and they don't all work. But you ought to try some of them. You ought to test some of them.
Yep.
My favorite out of West Texas is wine. What do they call it? Wine Wednesday. Wednesday night wine or something like that. They come in, you do the yoga on Wednesday night wine. They give you your first wine ticket. Oh, by the way, that there's a full restaurant and bar there too. So anyway, so I digress. But whether it's ping pong, whether it's what's this thing, pickleball, whether it's basketball, indoor soccer, futsal, CrossFit, yoga. Vending machines. Right? Golf simulator. If every facility in the country doesn't have a golf simulator by 2023, I'm going to be blown away. Why would you? That thing pays. That thing pays for itself in like a week.
Yep. I have a funny story. Our guys loved it so much. I've got one at my house and my facility. I mean, they ought to give me some commission back.
Listen, man, I'm telling you, the last 5 minutes of this conversation may have just saved somebody in 2023.
It's coming.
I hope. Listen, I hope times don't get tough. I hope there's an about face and it's just the the roaring 20s. But you can't be the restaurant that closes down 1 week into tough times. Don't be that guy. Be prepared and start gathering up the nuts right now.
Well, I'll tell you a little brief thing, and this is, I do like learning. That's my I'm always gathering information. And a lot of it I don't use. But some of it I can. And so I was at this seminar. Me and Coach Dials were there, and the guy was a Harvard professor who's an economics doctor, who taught economics. And anyway, long story short, he said, guys, if I could predict anything, he goes, I wouldn't be here right now. I'm going out, my island, so with my boat, my plane, and and my anyway. So he said, he made a good point, and I don't want to get into the politics of it, but in essence, and I've learned a bunch, but in essence, it's coming, and it's going to happen, and I'll be honest, I was on all kind of conference calls in 2020, and guys goes, man, what are we going to do? I go, and I won't say exactly what I said because we don't care. But I said, guys, if you thought this was going to last forever, you were kidding yourself. Nothing lasts forever. You have to continue to evolve. The same
great
is not going to last forever.
That's great. You have to evolve. That's great. All right, let me ask you one last question. One last pre-planned question that might lead to a few more questions. But which one change that you think could be made to travel baseball that would have the biggest positive impact on travel ball?
Obviously, just because we have a lot of impact on a lot of different things, and so I get a lot of phone calls about, hey, what can we do better? What can we do? What can we do different? What do we need to do? And here's the things that we can count. Parents, they'll quit eating at Outback. They'll quit going to buying new jewelry and new clothes. But I was in a meeting one time and this is just a couple years back, with a guy who's a big executive in a big company, and he's researched it. The last people to know anything bad is happening is your kids. So one thing that indoor facilities, I won't say they're recession proof,
right? But
they were recession resilient. Because parents, the last thing they want their kids to know is there's something going on.
Yeah.
And so to answer your question now, and everything's always evolving. And so the current system we're in, I don't necessarily think that it's what is best, but it's where we're at. I tell people all the time, if somebody's saying, hey guys, if y'all come over here, we're going to raffle off 500, but you don't have to pay anything for the raffle. We're just going to give away $500 today. And so you need to go. So we're and I get back to we have a tough time dealing with these early commits and things, and not that in no coach, you never talk to a college coach that says I want to commit a 14-year-old, but
they all do it, don't they?
They all have to do it.
Yeah.
And it's not, and so so we're having to make adjustments on our model to make sure the 14U guys now get to some of these events, because before we didn't think it was that important. We said 15, and so
right.
For our model now it's 14. And so that's the only real thing. And again, it's not. I don't blame it on anybody. I don't know that it'll anybody can change it. The NCAA tried to do some things, but that was worthless. But anyway, because everybody just finds ways around the rules. So that's the only thing for me. I wish my son, he committed when he was a junior, and so it wasn't. He was a top 25 player in the country. He could have had several offers. It wasn't the fact of that he didn't doubt his talents to worry about somebody taking a scholarship away from him. And so I think as parents, if parents could say, hey, listen, if you're 16 and you're 17 and they don't want to offer you anymore, you probably don't need to go play college there anyway, so you're not that player.
Yeah.
And that's a tough thing, because us as parents, again, we want what's best for our kids. We'll do anything for them. and not to knock any school, but we'll just say a D1 school comes and goes, hey, we want to offer your kid a scholarship. He's going into the ninth grade. He hasn't played high school ball yet, but we feel like he's from here, we're over here, and the only way that we're going to get him is we got to make an offer early, and we're going to make a good offer. And the parents are enamored, and just trust it. If your kid's that kid, if he deserves that scholarship, at 17 years old, he'll get that scholarship.
Yeah, it'll be there. If they like him at 14 but don't like him at 16, I don't know. You know?
You get that scholarship anyway, because
they're going if they don't like you at 16, they're going to drop you when you turn 16 anyway.
Right. Exactly.
It is. I think this is it's an obvious pain point across the board. The coaches don't want to be. They're like recruiting like 5 classes at once, and now you got to throw in the transfer portal on top of things. Now you got 26-year-old super seniors, super COVID seniors. So it's become it's becoming a little bit of a headache. I don't think there's a lot of there's not a lot of parents who necessarily want to be going through that at 8th grade, 9th grade. There's probably some simple things some mechanisms that could be put in place. I listen, my take is pretty simple. Like, I'm not against the early commit. I'm kind of against the whole decommit thing. And if we put some mechanisms in place that would just discourage the offers, then we would have fewer decommitments to even worry about. But I just don't think the NCAA really is in a place where they care. That's not a priority of theirs right now. Maybe one day it will become one. I kind of like the sort of the approach you guys took, where take our time, enjoy the process. If they're not, I'm 15 or 14. If they're not going to like me in 2 years, they probably don't like me that much anyway. I think that's a fine approach. I mean, my gosh, can you imagine what's the biggest decision a 9th grader's ever had to make? And then you're asking to make a college decision? That's bonkers.
I'll tell parents, when we have our meetings, and we try to do a couple a year where we bring guys in and try to educate parents on things. And there's 3 decisions that your son makes in his life, or there's 3 times in his life that are the most important. One is when you get married or who you marry. Yeah. 2 is when you have your first kid. Okay. And the 3rd one is where you go to school. Yeah. So hopefully the first 2 are done later in life, but you got this very important decision that's having to be made from a kid who hadn't had to make a lot of.
Yeah, their biggest decision, which pair of Nikes were they going to buy? Right. Am I going to get these Nikes or those Nikes? I mean, that's not life-changing stuff there. Right. Yeah, it's a weird scenario that we're putting some kids into right now. Gosh, hey man, I want to thank you for coming back on. This was another fun conversation that absolutely flew by. We may have to do a third update here pretty soon. I think we've only had one coach who's had a 3-peat so far, so I'm gonna have to go back to the well and get you to catch up. You're not going to be playing from behind for too long. But again, if you're still listening, go back to the original conversation. That was playinschool.com/Burress. And then all his contact stuff is there. This conversation will be at playinschool.com/ I don't know. I'm going to make it up on the fly. Burress-2, I guess. So find this conversation there, and I'll make sure I'll link over to the 5-Star website and the 5-Star National Twitter page, which I'm guessing you don't. Based on our last conversation, you didn't run that account, I don't think. Somebody's doing it, but you can find out all the information about 5-star there. But hang on one second, man. I'll stop the recording, but don't go anywhere. Do you have any parting shots for any coaches or moms and dads who's still listening?
No, I mean, like I said, I appreciate the interview and look forward to coming back up with you soon.
All right, don't go anywhere. I'm going to stop the recording.